today, everyone. I hope everyone's fine and excited about this talk today, this discussion today. It's a long-awaited one. So I'm sure you're going to have lots of questions, and you have the best man in town to answer them, Emilio. Maybe Emilio, you can introduce yourself quickly before jumping into the presentation. You've been around, but maybe there are some folks here who don't know who you are.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Emilio. I'm the economy designer on Life Beyond, but also working with Animoca as a tokenomics analyst as well. My background basically has been in economy design for the past 7 years, touching everything from mobile to working at Ubisoft to AAA, understanding the intricacies of everything to do with single currency, dual currency, value accrual, medium of exchange, creating proper faucets and sinks. So that's pretty much been my forte. That's something I really enjoy doing. And that's kind of why I'm here today to explain to you guys the direction of the tokenomics within Life Beyond and what that means for you guys when you guys step foot in Dolos.
So excited to finally be presenting this. Well, let's kick it off. I guess this is the high level pitch presentation about the tokenomics. There, I'm sure you're going to have lots of questions. A lot of details are going to be figured out as we build the game itself, and that we run the tokenomics and the economic of the game themselves. But I think what you will discover today will give you a very strong and exciting idea about what's coming up and what to expect in the future. Emilio, if you want to kick it in, go ahead.
Yep, thanks, Vince. So like Vince said, this is a very high-level overview. I want to start off the presentation with a quick disclaimer, just because I want to make sure that we know that when crypto, everything changes, right? One day something's legal, the next day it's banned across the world. So a couple of elements that you'll see in this deck are not subject to change, but as before, prior to the game releasing, things might be adapted as per se. But there's three main elements that are quite core to Life Beyond, and that these are things that we are always going to be building the tokenomics infrastructure around, and that's going to be the custodial wallet, game running on a side/S chain, and then a dual currency with doles being the stock currency and a fungible token being the premium currency. And we're going to get into all of this. Don't worry, before you guys get into multiple questions, we're going to get into all this as the presentation goes, but just want to highlight this really quickly, that these are the three main elements. And through that, we're going to see pretty much what the rest of this means. So when we have the token, so when we looked at how we want to design the token infrastructure, or just basically how we want to look at the tokenomics for Life Beyond, there was three main components that we wanted to really touch on. That was the token infrastructure, the in-game economy, and then the out-of-game economics, right? So when we looked at the infrastructure, we knew that this had to be something that was never done before, or that's something that pushes away from the traditional Web3 narrative, in the sense that we were honoring both critical mass, but also honoring traditional Web3 players, as well as and trying to build a strong game. So we know the infrastructure that we are going to build is going to be a key pivotal. It's going to play a key pivotal role within the game, but also on onboarding new users from both sides of the field. When we talk about, let's say, the in-game economy, obviously this is everything in retrospect to, let's say, the core loop perspective. So this is the pioneering phase, settling phase, governance phase, and we want to make sure that within the tokenomics aspect, that we respect every player's role or progression tree they want to follow. Since they themselves, you guys will be the lifeblood of the game. So in essence, the in-game economy is something that's going to be built so that you guys can enjoy it, and the tokenomics itself will be reflected out in that when we talk about the in-game stuff. And then obviously when we talk about the out-of-game economics within the game, so this is obviously where the game and the Web3 side of things meet. And we want to make sure that we are making sure we are having the token itself be utilized efficiently within the Life Beyond ecosystem. So the main avenues we see of this is through governance, staking, and purchasing. But as a whole, we want to make sure that we that each player, whenever they bring something to the table, that we compound the value of the token, and obviously, as an extension of that, Life Beyond as well succeeds. So, without further ado, this is pretty much going to be our main token infrastructure. So, in order to prepare ourselves for mass adoption, we designed the ecosystem to support both interoperability and being sensitive to the Web 2 and Web 3 players' concerns. So the tokenomics and the design will heed this concern. And then to our approach, basically, is going to be a side edge chain, AMM, which will then be bridged to a fungible token main chain. So I know that you see FT a lot, and I'll explain a bit why that's later. But just to keep in mind, our entire approach will be that is on the game, you'll be able to come into the game, you'll be able to play the game, you'll be able to earn the soft currency. At one point, if ever you guys want to start transitioning out, you go through the different steps, and then you could off-ramp to the fungible token, which was what we're going to show in the graph in a little bit. But I'll take a step back and try to explain to you guys what are all these different terms in case you guys, some of you are not crypto native 100% or not really unsure about what these mean. Edge chain, side chain, that's basically, it's a separate blockchain that runs, let's say, on a parent chain. So think of a supernet on Polygon. That is, let's say, a side chain. This is basically a private chain where we're able to facilitate smoother transactions between assets and between players, whether it's P2P or B2P, and offers lots of layers of security and privacy, right? So a lot of the times that we're seeing in multiple games, we see if ever there's like an exploit in a main chain game and someone's able to extrapolate a lot of tokens for whatever reason because there was a chink in the armor, there's no way to go backtrack on that, right? You're not able to reprimand that individual. Maybe you could ban them, but the damage has already been done. The economy has already been messed with, and there's no way to avoid that. Rather, having it on the side chain, we're able to catch these bad actors right off the bat. If there is something that is malicious in intent, we have programs that are able to flag these, and we're able to extract the doles that they've earned and put it on the side and give them a warning, hey, there's something that you've done that has not been proper, we've caught you. So that's one of the main approaches why we decided to go on the edge chain, was because this allows us to make sure that we're able to catch these bad actors and to make sure the game is successful and thrives as well. When talking about a main chain, I mean, main chain basically could be anything from Polygon, Aptos, Ethereum, whatever it is. This is basically the public chain where people, have, let's say, different types of transactions or activities from a Web3 perspective, right? So in this, we are going to have the edge chain connected to the main chain through a bridge. When we talk about custodial wallets, so this is basically is a wallet that is held, let's say, private keys from a third party, meaning that they have pretty much control over the funds and the permissions sent between different exchanges. So we are going to be having this custodial wallet present within the sidechain, so that whenever you guys do participate in the economy, whenever you guys let's say have transactions between each other, it's all stored within this internal data. That's not to say that we are going to be controlling how you guys move stuff. That's not what that means. It just means that we are facilitating it so that there's no contract signing, right? So the biggest asset here with a custodial wallet is, let's say I want to sell, let's say a bottle of whatever, of Coke for let's say 50 dole on the auction house. I'll throw a random name. Little Joe decides to buy it from me. Now theoretically, if it's a main chain game, there has to be two contracts signing, right? This will be the first one of me listing it, and the second one of someone else buying it. And then there's the actual facilitation of the actual transaction. With a custodial wallet, that's seamless. We don't have to sign anything. So I could go put on the auction house, they could buy it off the auction house, without us ever having to be breaking from that immersion of playing an MMO. This is why this particular tool is fantastic for MMOs in general, because if you guys ever played like World of Warcraft or EVE Online or Final Fantasy, whatever MMO there is out there, transactions or player economy is an integral part of a game. So there's a lot of transaction happening, whether it's through the auction house, whether it's through P2P, whether it's me selling something back to, let's say, the trader, whatever it is, a lot of transactions happen. So with the custodial wallet, all we're doing is allowing you guys to not have to sign contracts. Is for that the onus falls on us to make sure that those transactions happen, but that you're never breaking away from that immersion. And that's probably one of the biggest selling points we're going to have when we want to adopt Web2 players into the game, is that they don't have to start, oh, what is this? I have to read this long text. understand what the transaction means. None of that is needed with a custodial wallet. So that's why it's an integral part for the mass adoption approach that we want to take. And then the last one is the AMM. So in case a lot of you aren't familiar with AMM, these are automatic market makers, and they're used on a lot of decentralized exchanges, such as Sushi Swap, whatever it is. And they basically use mathematical algorithms to determine the price of assets based on the supply and demand from either side, right? And generally, there's 2 tokens between each in the AMM. So in our case, which we'll see right here, we're going to have our 2 main ones will be Dole and the fungible token. Before we go into that, I'm going to just talk really quickly about Dole and the fungible token, which are both of our currencies that we will have within the game. So Dole, as you guys have known, we've gone through the hay of trying to figure out how to make sure that we respect, let's say, we respect the economy, and that we design something that is going to be sustainable for long term, and also making sure that we're able to onboard users as well. So for Life Beyond, we're going to be running a dual currency system through Doles and the fungible token. So Doles itself will be an inflationary token. And this, again, allows us to connect players from a traditional game background to the blockchain within our ecosystem, while also keeping the economy quite stable. And this is obviously going to be done through a frictionless way, through our infrastructure that we'll see, and obviously utilizing the custodial wallets. Well, on the flip side, the fungible token itself will act as a support to the Dole within our ecosystem. And this also allows us to bring that mass adoption into the blockchain indoctrination, or bringing them into educating them onto how blockchain works, and so that they can start creating that network effect that we know is quite important for us as well. So there is a requirement for the fungible token for certain in-game content, and because of that, this will create a lot of high demand and drives all aspects of player progression and gameplay systems, which we'll see a bit later. But basically, the only way players can procure items or systems from the list that we'll see in a bit is from having, let's say, the fungible token. So what does this infrastructure look like? I said a bunch of stuff right now, and what does this all mean? Basically, in a nutshell, this is how the entire infrastructure flow will look like. So we're going to start, before I go into the left side and start talking about, let's say, the narrative behind it, we're going to talk about just the general flow. So players are going to come into the game, and either they have with land or without land, game content or P2P trading, we're going to be able to earn Dole. So with Dole, we bring it to the AMM, and then we're able to swap it for the fungible token. But through that, we're able to bridge it onto the main chain. And then from there, once you have it on the main chain, you could go to the marketplace, you could sell it, you could go to central exchanges, you could do whatever you want with it. And vice versa can be said. Players can go to marketplace or central exchanges, they could buy the fungible token, they could bring it into the game, and they could swap it for Dole. So both of these different types of transactions are completely possible. So now going on to the tech side of things, so within this framework, we want to make sure that the fungible token is reflective on the main chain, but also honoring and having Dole work its magic on the side chain to make sure that it does support that dual economy system. So through that, a lot of the times we're going to see players coming in from a Web 2 perspective, not understanding, Web 3 per se, and they don't need to, because through the edge chain, it's going to be completely frictionless. While others who are more Web 3 knowledgeable will be able to take advantage of that and be able to bring the fungible token to convert into Dole on the other side. So what does this look like from a functionality perspective? So Life Beyond will have just one edge chain currency, which is Dole. The fungible token is earned by converting Dole to it via the AMM and the edge chain. And this is controlled by the AMM, which is Life Beyond. And then through that, they convert it to the fungible token, and then that whole entire exchange happens. So what are the benefits of this? As I said before, a frictionless gameplay experience through the custodial wallet, well-planned security measures to reduce and catch bad actors, incentivizing spending of the fungible token outside the ecosystem to generate value for the in-game system and mechanics, a proper and controlled game economy with our edge chain currencies, and obviously allows us to teach and educate new users in Web3, which I think is probably the biggest selling point there. So now I've said a bunch of stuff. What does it look like? What do we actually have? What is our faucets and sinks with the game economy? So This took a bit of time to kind of devise and start looking at the different things that we wanted to have based on our different core micro, macro, and meta loop progression systems. And we've kind of nailed down more or less these different types of avenues that we wanted to hit. So as you saw in the previous slide, Dole itself, Dole will be able to be earned through, let's say, life beyond content. So what does that mean, life beyond content? Well, these will be things such as, let's say, dungeons, maybe a world boss, potentially some specific quests, really mitigated to a certain point, but we'll be having some faucets for Dole within the LB content. Obviously, another one is exchanging the fungible token for Dole. That's a pretty big one. Another one is land emissions. So I don't know if it's been said before, but land itself will emit Dole. So depending on the land you have, there'll always be a certain amount of Dole that will be embedded within it. What does that mean? That means that you guys are going to be able to extrapolate this Dole through GDP or through in-game interactions, and then you'll be able to receive it on your side, which is a fantastic dual value proposition for land itself. Because not only do you have land, which has embedded within its resources, location, everything else, but there will also be Dole within it as well. So that, I don't know if that's been said before, but that's probably an extra snippet for you guys to know as well. And obviously, different land sizes will have different amounts associated with them. These amounts are going to be fixed, though, and the rate that it does emit will depend entirely on the GDP generated. So GDP, and these are things we haven't nailed down per se, but these are going to be things such as extracting minerals, so obviously exportation, anything with, let's say, renting, or let's say you have a hotel, which I think is what a lot of you guys want to do, which is fantastic. Having a hotel and charging rent, that is generating some form of in-game capital, so that will be part of GDP. So think of anything from, let's say, a traditional standpoint, that is just GDP generation. That is what's going to be able to emit Dole. And then, obviously, P2P trading. So similar to multiple different types of MMOs out there, players are able, a lot of the player-driven economy aspect of it is earning, let's say, gold, or earning, let's say, the soft currency in the game. For an example, I myself, whenever a new expansion comes out in World of Warcraft, I generally corner a market and I start going to down on charging crazy amounts of money and for resources, because you're just able to do that. And that's kind of where I earn most of my gold, is just by cornering the market and by playing the player economy aspect. So P2P trading is probably going to be one of the most lucrative options for users to earn Dole itself. So what does that look like for sinks? So now we know kind of where Dole comes from, and we've basically understood more or less how that's going to play later. What does that mean for us in terms of spending it? So we are going to have a lot of core gameplay sinks for Dole. A lot of these things are going to be related to, let's say, player progression. So when we're upgrading items, upgrading tools, upgrading weapons, through the different progression trees that we're going to have, or do different tiers. I can't talk too much about it because Stev will probably be upset, but there is something very, very interesting in the works in terms of progression systems for tools and weapons themselves. So that's going to be one of the biggest sinks for Doles. Another one will be infrastructure itself. So a lot of this will take place specifically in the settling phase, where users are going to be able to build a lot of stuff that you're going to need to build will require Dole. So Dole is going to be a massive impact or massive requirement for infrastructure. Minerals and resources as well. Users are going to need to obviously spend to purchase minerals and resources, either organic or material based, either through other users or from the deep itself. So having these resources is probably going to be a large bottleneck for the entire supply chain, which can't go into too much detail yet, but there's something cooking in terms of a large supply chain where pretty much everything's going to be interconnected to a certain point, and minerals and resources are going to be finite in a sense that they're going to be very dependent on each other. So users that have a lot of Dole, or users that have a use case for Dole, will be able to extract a lot of value for it. Again, bringing me back to the previous example where you could corner a market. In our game, unlike World of Warcraft, some things do not last forever. So that's going to be a great use case for that as well. Player-provided labor. Now, a lot of the things that we haven't discussed that are probably going to be new to you is that we're going to have different types of expertises. or skill sets that you go perform. I myself, for example, I love to I enjoy farming. So farming is more of, let's say, extrapolating organic material over a larger area. But there's different trees I could follow as well, different expertises. So I could be, let's say, on more of a just, it's more mass versus quality. So there's going to be a lot of use cases for people to design or to hire individuals to perform certain tasks on their land because they don't have the skill set to even do it, right? And this could even be for, let's say, building or mining or any other the jobs that we're going to have planned. Sometimes, even if you do own land, you can't do everything. You're going to be reliant on other individuals because there's different types of individuals that have better skill sets. And so a lot of the times it's going to be required to be paid in dole. So again, this is another good use case for users. Dole is going to be quite an integral part in having users being paid for their labor they provide. And there's an entire contract system revolving this. Can't go into too much detail about it yet, but there'll be a contract system that is going to be using this type of foundation as a bedrock to create a lot of different types of users in terms of, let's say, rating or in creating users to kind of enable themselves to better themselves in different expertises so that they can themselves expand and grow through their own progression. And then finally, player crafted materials. So one of the things that we haven't touched on a lot, because a lot of these different elements here were related to settling. Pioneering phase is going to be one heck of a ride. In terms of just going out and doing the dungeons, the open world content, a lot of this stuff is going to require materials like pots, healing elixirs, whatever it is, consumables, and a lot of these things are going to require dole to be purchased, either through, let's say, the deep or from other players as well. Because based on that, there's going to be a lot of different types of content in the open world that is going to require users to have that extra edge in order to complete it. So as you can see, dole, again, is going to be a pivotal role and play a pivotal factor in creating this strong in-game economy. So pushing on a bit and looking at, let's say, for the in-game economics and things that are going to be required from the fungible token aspect. So just a quick header that these actions that take place will need to take place on the main chain. And this will incentivize participants to participate in the Web3 community as well. So from a fungible tokens perspective, as I said, there is no faucet for the fungible token per se. The token itself can only be earned from converting dole through the AMM into it. And again, the AMM is going to be based on, let's say, supply and demand. So it's going to be very interesting to see how users are going to be playing that market, but also how users are going to be looking at the different types of needs and wants for the fungible token within the game. So to quickly go through this this diagram for you guys really fast. On the left side, we have the entire game running on the edge chain. So Life Beyond, we have lands, we have game content, players interacting with the game content through, let's say, the marketplace, through trading dole. Players get dole, they bring it to the AMM. Now they have the fungible token, and through the game systems, they use the fungible token to purchase or to do specific gameplay progressions. So these could be things such as repairing, upgrading, or modifying NFT tools, crafting core items. So some items actually will require you to sync fungible token into it, purchasing gear enhancers or consumables, minting NFT capacities, vehicle and operational NFT parts. To push that through, obviously the quality of life stuff is going to be quite important as well. And then obviously player uniqueness identifier. So things that really I think matter in MMO is your own identity and how you yourself want to showcase that to other players. So this could be, so the fungible token will obviously allow you to showcase your uniqueness. And this could be through land decorations, pet robot personalization features, web vehicle and tool customizable options as well. So a lot of these things are very high level. They're written on paper, but our goal is to deliver on a lot of these promises is so that the fungible token itself has a lot of use cases for the in-game stuff. But there is more to that. There's also the out-of-game stuff, right? So that's where the fungible token itself will be very valuable. And again, like I said, the only way to earn the fungible token will be through dole. So from the fungible token perspective, there's three main things that drive the demand. there'll be the governance, staking, and purchasing options. So for governance, it's very straightforward. It's just going to be DAO capacity decisions and voting on certain things. For staking, we want to offer two different options. If you just stake the fungible token per se, then through a quest, you'll be able to earn in-game rewards. If you lock up land along with the fungible token, then this will add a multiplier onto the emission of dole. So obviously, like I said, you still need to generate GDP. But if you do have that locked up with the fungible token, the increase is increased exponentially. And then purchasing. So purchasing is probably going to be one of the main drivers. One of the main ones we want to have is we want to be part of the ecosystem of Animoca brands. And therefore, having the fungible token being used on, let's say, different types of products or game products from cross promotion is going to be a key thing for us. But in terms of what else we offer, so this is going to be, as I mentioned before, the core gameplay enhancements, but also lands as well. So lands are going to be able to be purchased with the fungible token, mystery boxes as well, digitals, and any other NFT collections that we do have for public release will require the fungible token to be used. So just to give you guys some kind of an idea of how we're kind of envisioning this, we've kind of done a quick user journey from both a Web3 player and a Web2 player. So from a Web3 player coming on, let's say they hear about it from a Twitter, they do some research, they go on Binance and they buy the token, they link their game to the MetaMask, they log into the game, they have their custodial wallet automatically set up, they're able to swap the fungible token for the dole. Now, they have obviously having now extra dole prior to even starting the game, you have a slight advantage, which is fantastic because you invested, so it makes sense that you guys get something in return. So with that dole, you're able to start buying, let's say, certain assets in the game, items to start enjoying your gameplay experience. Obviously, through that, the player discovers new ways to earn dole, whether it's through, let's say, generating GDP through land emissions, selling resources on the auction house, whatever it is. Through the generation of dole and through earning more dole, you obviously upgrade and being able to earn more, and while at the same time, hopefully enhancing your gameplay experience even further. And then through that, obviously, this is where the DAO situation comes into play, is becoming an active member of the community, participating in discussions, events and terms, and sharing the experience with other players, kind of creating that network effect. So this is what we envision a Web3 user journey would look like. In terms of a Web2 traditional user, what does that look like? So this is really the audience that we want to also bring on board. User visits the game websites, clicks on the sign on button. They enter in their information, email address, whatever it is. They create their own unique dashboard or unique account. They log into the game. Their custodial wallet is set up. They go to the lobby and they start playing the game. In the game, they're earning dole through participating in the content. If they have land or if they're working on land, whatever it is, they're earning that as well. Selling the resource on the auction house. Through that, they're able to spend their dole and upgrade themselves. Now, at this point, they're learned about how to swap dole for a fungible token. So now they're able to start setting up the MetaMask wallet and connecting to the game. At that point, they're able to swap their doles to the AMM and bridge it to the main chain. And that's when they can start buying, NFTs and start being part of the Web3 ecosystem. So that, for us, would be a traditional user journey for a Web2 player. And I've done a lot of talking. And on that note, that's pretty much it. and I'll leave you guys up.